Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live with the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. We got a special guest on today, Terrance Mcmahon. Terrance is the host of Books to Business, a guest speaker, amazing story. We're going to dive right into it. Terrance, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hey, everyone. Happy to be with you today from Miami Beach. We're down here, a little overcast, but I'm excited to talk to your group.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. We always start off by just diving directly into our guest and getting the audience to know who you are. So just dive into who you are now, what are you doing now, and kind of stuff like that, and we'll take it from there, Terrance.
Yeah, I spend a lot of my time helping ambitious people recreate themselves, their brain, their body, their businesses, so that they can have the tools and the knowledge to kind of free themselves from the grind, as I call it. And you'll know a little bit more about that when you hear my story, and be more happier, more successful, and more wealthy.
So you're currently, obviously currently with the pandemic, you're not doing it, but is guest speaking or your TEDx speaking is a big part of your life right now?
I do a lot. It is. I do it. I did a TED Talk last October. It was a privilege to share my message on a TED stage, and almost 100,000 people now have seen that video, and that's growing every day. And it's about helping people recreate themselves, helping maybe reinvent would be a word people can connect with. I went through a journey that does that, but right now I spend a lot of my time doing high-level business strategy, and I enjoy it. I pick my spots. I've graduated out of a life that kind of leaves me tied to a desk or any physical location. I like to be a globetrotter.
Yeah, the freedom.
So when the traveling and the planes open back up, I want to be able to work from anywhere on earth and help people and advance themselves.
That's beautiful.
I kind of worked backwards from amazing. What amazing looked like in my mind, and I worked backwards from there.
You want to dive into that? Explain that a bit more.
Well, sure. Maybe it'd be the time to give you a little backstory. This last Memorial Day weekend was kind of an anniversary for me, because 4 years ago, Memorial Day weekend, I wandered into an emergency room. I was a CEO, had a 7-figure income, and ran a big insurance company in New England, outside of Boston. I was 350 pounds, which meant I was morbidly obese. I thought I was having a heart attack. I had heart palpitations, and I wandered into an emergency room in Manchester, New Hampshire, which was ground zero for the opioid epidemic at the time. So you can imagine the waiting room was full of people that were in withdrawals or having difficulties with the drugs. It was loaded with people. And, because I had a heart-related issue, they brought me right in to not even a room. It was more of a curtained-off area because the place was so busy. And of course, they do their protocol. The doctors come in, they put the monitors on, and they immediately start taking blood, and they're coming in one at a time. And at some point, I kind of knew it was something more than my heart. And the last doctor came in, and by the look on his face, I knew I was in trouble. He said, "Mr. McMahon, it's not your heart; it's your liver. Your liver and your pancreas are in failure. You could very well die tonight if we don't go to some extreme measures." My liver failure was alcohol liver failure, because I was combating daily bouts with depression and anxiety with alcohol. So I instantly went from a 7-figure income and a CEO that had everything that he ever wanted, to being labeled an alcoholic and put on the end of a liver transplant waiting list, literally needing someone else to die for me to live. And that's kind of where I started the journey to, from a journey from pure accomplishment to a journey of survival.
Could I dive in there something with you, Terrance? With the alcoholism, what age did that all, did you realize, or what age did it all progress or start with you? If you mind us diving into that.
Yeah, I would say, my father.
Were you aware of it, or it was just socially, just let me enjoy myself?
Where it really took off was in college, because I always had the jitters, and none hit harder than the first day I went into I had a scholarship to go to school at the University of Massachusetts-Lowell, and I went to school the first day, and then I didn't think I belonged there. I didn't think I was good enough, and my body was starting to act up. And instead of getting a good night's sleep and getting ready for my first day of school, my first day with my new teammates, I went out and I had alcohol. I used alcohol to medicate the anxiety and the panic attacks, and that became a daily habit because that never went away. And it actually multiplied itself when I left baseball, and I left. I had an okay career, but I never applied myself. But there were no jobs in 1990 when I got out of college. I had a baby on the way. I had no degree yet. I had nothing, knew no one, and the only job I could get was knocking on doors selling life insurance. Door-to-door life insurance salesman, from a hero on the baseball diamond to a butt of a joke out of a Woody Allen movie. The life insurance that's the guy that no one wants to talk to at a cocktail party. And that's about as highest stress level job that exists, banging on doors to strangers and having them,
What year was this in?
This is 1991.
91, okay.
Yeah. And you know what? I did fine. And, but I was on the brink. It's a difficult job, pride swallowing, knocking on doors. And in 1992, shortly after I started December 31st. In 1992, a couple of wonderful things happened in January 10th. My son was born, David. He's actually sitting in a room with me right now. And it's interesting, when a baby's born, at least at the time, they stamped their feet and their toes with ink, and they put it on a little card. And I was kind of curious to the nurse. They said, "What do you do with those cards?" And she says, "Well, we take them down and we register the baby at town hall." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And because on Tuesday nights, I knew, because I was an insurance agent, the birth announcements used to be in the paper. So on top of knocking on doors, we also used to call these people on Tuesday. So now I found a way to get that information first. It was a big change in my life. Just that one idea that I could be a little creative. So I went to town hall and I pulled all the files and copied them down with my notebook, went to a payphone at the time, got their phone number, went back to the office, and I called them days earlier about their new baby and asked them if they wanted to update their insurance. So I went from having no sales to earning a six-figure income. And that was an algorithm, by the way. Algorithms are a big part of my life now. They always have been, which is just
I think they're a big part of most people's lives. They may not realize it is.
Yeah. I mean, you make a grilled cheese sandwich in the morning. It's an algorithm: 2 pieces of bread, some butter, a piece of cheese toasted on both sides perfectly, and you get a good grilled cheese. Well, there's algorithms to accomplishing things. There's known recipes, and I found one to make a couple bucks. And I applied that algorithm, that concept of kind of thinking ahead, working backwards from a great result. Like if I had a baby, I'd want to probably do something about it. And now the phone rang, and the first person that would ask me, I'd probably give them a chance. That was an algorithm I figured out, and I applied it in generating, more opportunities for me, and then ultimately opportunities for others.
Yeah.
And then I applied it to growing a firm. And at the end, I had 600 brokers and 150 career advisors in a big organization with 60,000 customers. So I kind of blew up. And I also,
give me a glance of what period of time this was in. 3 years, 4 years, 5-year period.
It ran out pretty quick. And, in the first 5 to 7 years, I went up very fast, and it just kept compounding, and over 25 years, when I was 47 years old, Memorial Day 4 years ago, I'm 51 now. I built that big company, but I never found an algorithm that could help me relieve my stress and anxiety. I call it the grind. The reason I was on that table in 2016 wasn't the industry. It was, I didn't have a predictable algorithm to bring me customers. That's where all the stress is in the financial advisor space. I still consult there pretty actively. And my goal is to teach them how to be free agents, how to be free of the grind.
Yeah.
And the business principles that I teach in my strategies are what is the antidote to that grind. Get out of the grind, free yourself, using these algorithms. So my journey to survival helped me kind of figure out some things on how to like survive. And, you got to understand, it's a pretty high profile person. And when you have liver failure, you're going through a physical, very noticeable transformation. You're starting to, your skin gets discolored. Your eyes get almost bloodshot. You're jaundice, and you're withering away and dying. A couple of days after I was in the hospital, the doctor said,
how old was your son at this point?
Oh, he was 21 or 2.
Oh, so he's an adult already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is there was 25 years.
Yeah.
But the doctor said that your good news, not the good news, but it took a year, 323 days to get a liver transplant. My estimated time to survive was 6 months. So I didn't have enough time, and went through the process of trying to get a transplant, which is very difficult. And I went to a couple, and I basically went to one. I was at the very end, and they said, you have to go to alcohol rehab, a drug and alcohol rehab center. And I had, they said I could, I have maybe, I'm 4 months into this now, so I might have a couple months left to live, and I got to spend most of it in a drug and alcohol rehab center, where they call you, an addict. They tell you you have a disease, and they tell you there's no cure. And their algorithm, their system to cure this is to go to meetings every day and call yourself an addict. And which is fine. It just wasn't fine for me. I didn't like that very much. And that was rehabilitation. That was the rehab center. The textbook definition of that word is to restore something back to its original condition. So that's like, you're putting me back together the way I was when I was broken anyway. And I had an epiphany that I wanted to recreate myself instead of rehabilitate. So I wanted to make something new that never existed before, to bring something new into the world. And that's what kind of got me a little excited. So I got busy trying to figure out how to survive long enough to potentially get a transplant. But when I got out of rehab, I was inoperable. Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville says you're not operable. I was really sick. My 30-day mortality was almost certain. And I started the process of saying goodbye to everybody. He said, get your affairs in order. So I had a family meeting, and I was pushing piles of my life's work away, and, my money and my businesses. And it was my brother and I at the end, when everything, the whole plan was worked out, because I was a financial planner. I was like, geez, Tim, I think my whole life's been a mistake. Like, there's nothing left. There's just the memory of some guy that did okay financially and drank himself to death. So it was sad, and I had to say goodbye to my kids. And, it was just me and my mother at the end, waiting. And we got very sick. And we got a call late at night one night. It was a Mayo Clinic, and I had lived right across the street. They said a prisoner had died in Alabama, and the prisoner was what's called high risk, because he was also an IV drug user, which meant the organ wasn't necessarily safe for me to take. And I took it. It was high risk, and I took it. So we lived right across the street, and my mom brought me over, and they sent a team to harvest the organ in Alabama. They put it on a helicopter in Birmingham, brought it from Birmingham to Jacksonville, and from the airport in Jacksonville to the landing pad at Mayo Clinic, into the building, up into the operating room where I was, and they put it in my body, and I lived. That was January 19th, 2017. About 10 days.
So a little over 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First off, amazing story. Congratulations on that part. It's remarkable to hear people's journeys, right? You can look at somebody, bump into somebody on the street, you'll never know what they've gone through or what they, like, looking at you now, I would never, ever imagine that story would ever happen to you, right? With the liver transplant, it's amazing health wise. So health has been I guess, an important journey since then for yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was one part of my recreation. There's a lot of things in my journey that are kind of remarkable, because about 10 days later, it's January 2017. About 10 days later, I'm from Boston, so I'm a Patriot fan. I kind of like stumbled into the room to watch the Super Bowl, and the Patriots are just getting smoked. Tom Brady's down, I think 3 touchdowns with like 6 minutes left to go. And I was like, wow, what a hell of a good time for a comeback. Like, everybody loves a comeback. And sure enough, he comes back and marches the team down. That's the whole essence of being broken, right? When you're that broken and you're that busted up and you're like at the very lowest level of existence, you are in the exact place you want to be as a marker for a comeback. And that's what I did. I kind of got busy, learning about algorithms. I got them from books. These are all books here that I read in my podcast studio, and everything I've gotten for free out of books for the most part. I paid for some coaching, but I've gotten so much knowledge out of books. So I put myself back together, and I heard once of a Japanese mending process called kintsugi. And the Japanese take this broken pottery, and this is a several hundred-year-old tradition, and they take great care in putting the pottery back together with this golden lacquer. And the gold is in the cracks, and the cracks are symbolic of a scar that is to be emblazed in gold, like celebrated this wonderful, wonderful thing that you've survived. It's not hidden. It's not a way for no one to talk about again. It's right there. Like the scars I have on my stomach, called the Mercedes scar. It goes up and around my belly, and I take my shirt off, and you can see it. It's like, that's a big thing that's happened to me. So in kintsugi, the broken pottery put back together is more valuable than the original unbroken art, because they celebrate. They don't rehabilitate the pottery and hide the scars, which they're capable of doing. They let that shine. And that was kind of the beacon from my journey. Losing weight. I learned the algorithms to write a book. I wrote a book called Superhero Self. It's a 3-category, #1 Amazon bestseller. I started this show, this podcast, just like you. I want to share my voice with the world. These are important lessons, and in business and life. I mean, I have plenty of people that don't have anything to do with business. They get lots of ideas, and that's what I do. And I do it from anywhere on earth. I wanted to build backwards from amazing, and amazing to me was a lifestyle-friendly business, designing a lifestyle. Being the architect of my life, I want to be able to work from anywhere on earth. So I sold all my stuff, right? And Stephen Covey says, if you want to change the fruit, you got to change the roots.
Yes.
So you gotta cut them out. And that's the first step in my algorithm to recreate yourself. In my TED Talk, it's decisions. You got to cut. And, decisions aren't about adding things. A lot of people think, I got to make a decision to do something. That's not what a decision is. A decision is cutting away. If you break the word down, the etymology of decision is D means away from, like a detour or a divorce, right? And incision means cut. Incision, to cut away from. So I had to cut away from an identity that I had as a partier, and the guy that was the life of the party that could, that did all these stupid things, to, certainly not an addict. I wanted to be a superhero. I said the opposite of an addict is a superhero, someone who's strong and comes back. So I wrote that book, Superhero Self. And that's a lot of things. A lot of people in my life got cut. A lot of places I used to go got cut. I moved. I sold my company. I got rid of the toxicity. But in my journey, my second step in my algorithm is to have a story and a narrative of your own journey. Because if you don't have your own narrative, the world will give you one. And they'll tell you to wear it just like a suit. Like, you're this. Like, you're not a good student. You're bad at math. You're an addict. You should go into construction. It's like, That's not your story. Your story is your story. Work backwards from amazing, not what you do, but why you do it. Like why you want to be this person, and talk to people about that. You give yourself that reputation to live up to. And then the final step is the miracle of the dominoes. You got to line up your dominoes. The domino has amazing physics about it, because a little domino stores energy, and it creates action potential when that thing is moved forward. So we have action potential embedded in our daily lives. And like the domino effect, when one domino knocks over the next, the 2-inch domino can knock over another 2-inch domino. But it also creates additional action potential that goes to waste in that model. Because a 2-inch domino, physics will tell you, will knock over a 3-inch domino, something 50% bigger its own size. So the domino, lining up your domino means what can you do today that by doing that will advance you tomorrow to what you want to do, what that amazing thing is. So if you line up those dominoes, just for health, I couldn't walk when I got off my transplant, right? I couldn't do a lot of things, but I could drink water. Like I started drinking water, drink 8 of these a day, 8 bottles of water. I couldn't run a marathon, but I could start to count calories and lose some weight. And as I lost weight and got rid of these other things and added these nice things to my life, I started doing yoga. I started riding my bike. I started working out. So I started doing a lot of things. And before you know it, I lost, over 120 pounds. And I'm as healthy as I've been in my 30s, right? So I work backwards from excellence. Like you can line up your dominoes. So the 3 steps are: make a decision, cut away, change the roots, cut the roots out, install a new narrative, the superhero narrative to who you could be. All right. And think a lot about that, work backwards from amazing, and be focused on the why, and then line up your dominoes. There's always one thing you can do that can advance yourself towards your goal tomorrow. And if you knock out one thing a day, you'd be very surprised of how close and how quick you can move.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, once you have children, you start looking at their schedules, their lives, and time flies a lot quicker. And by doing something, accomplishing something every day, I'm a strong believer in that. Your goals are all going to be obtained. I always, that's one thing I reiterate to everybody, just every day, set a goal, set an accomplishment yourself, and just continue building on it. And your end goal will come a lot sooner than you actually put your mind to it. So I appreciate you saying that. It's pretty amazing. Let's dive into a little bit about your past, the baseball world.
Sure.
Your dad was a pro baseball player. So start with your dad and bring the history, because I'm a huge baseball guy. I'm a baseball coach. Everybody that knows me knows it's a big part of my life. So I found that very interesting. I'd love to dive into that with you, Terrance.
Well, have you ever been around a party or something and someone says, yeah, I used to play baseball, and everybody loves and has great memories of being on a baseball diamond, because you can play baseball your whole life. If you just hit one ball on the money at the right time and you're the hero for a moment, there's no shot of adrenaline in the world that is better than that. I always say, like, my father was a great baseball player, and people, you see people kind of say, yeah, right. I said, well, no, he was the best shortstop in the world in 1949, like the best shortstop in the world. And in Massachusetts, he was in like a little town called Pittsfield, which is on the western border, and they were playing a town called Brockton for the state Division I championship. And my father had a walk-off home run in that game, right? So little Pittsfield, it's like Hoosiers, little Pittsfield won the state championship. So behind the backstop of that game were 16 major league scouts. There were 16 teams. In the locker room after the game, all 16 teams offered my father the maximum major league signing bonus available, which was $6,000. And 10 teams, according to my father and my grandmother, offered side money, cars, everything, including the Red Sox, which he wanted to play for. They were going to give him a brand new Chevy. And my grandmother made him sign with the Cincinnati Reds because they promised her they'd take him to church on Sunday, because my dad was like 18. Yeah, so he went away and played in Muncie, Indiana, played baseball for a couple seasons. His eyes went out, never made it to the bigs, but he taught us these algorithms. He learned a lot about baseball. He was an excellent baseball player. Like, he was like the best shortstop in the world that year, because a week after he signed, Yankee Hall of Famer Mickey Mantle signed for just $2,200. My dad would always say, if you ever talked to him, I was better than Mickey Mantle because I signed for more money, because he was better than Mickey Mantle for one day. My brother, he had 6 kids, four boys. My brother Eddie was a Sporting News All-American shortstop. In 1973, he was the number 2 draft choice for the Twins. Very good shortstop, excellent shortstop. My brother Sean played for the Blue Jays. He played in St. Catharines in the Blue Jays organization.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Got a ring. That the year, is that the Joe Carter year? No, 1980.
It was 92, 93 is when they won the 2 World Series back to back.
Yeah, 92 he was in. It was 92, right. 1992 he played for St. Catharines, the St. Catharines Blue Jays. So he was a shortstop in the minor league organization. My brother Tim went to Quinnipiac on a scholarship, and I went to UMass-Lowell on scholarship. So we had very good baseball players. Like, imagine us in summer camp, like playing. We're a day camper, and the 3 of us would come up and hit 3, 4, and 5. Like, we're good. That's just the way it was. Like, it's not like but the algorithms stuck with me.
What position did you play? Were you a pitcher?
I was a catcher.
You're a catcher.
Yeah, I ended up catching. I like to catch. I don't know why. I just did. I caught my whole life. And, it's also interesting, if you're a baseball player, I caught my whole life. I caught hundreds of games, maybe 1,000. Never caught a no-hitter.
Interesting. Yeah.
I caught 25 or 31 hitters. Never caught a no-hitter.
It's the rarity of it, right?
Yeah. Well, fear is the mother of the event, right? And we always go out around the 9th inning when there was, you got a no going into the 9th, and you go to talk to the guys and just throw the ball, right? They start manifesting the hit. Fear is the mother of the event. Fear has no purpose in life for anybody.
What position did your other? You had one brother play shortstop. What position did your other brother play?
All of them were shortstops except for Tim and I. Tim was an outfielder, and then I played catcher. It was a big part of our lives, and it wasn't, looking back, and I loved baseball, but I never had the direction I think I could have used. Right. I never dreamed. I don't know why. I kind of went through the motions for a long time, took my talent for granted. And, thankfully I recovered from it. That's the gift. I'm in an encore career because I did something for 25 years. And then I had an opportunity, in the Bible, Jesus writes, like, come away with me to my friends to a quiet place and get some rest. It's about going away and recreating yourself, because everything was so crazy. It's kind of like these times, like, wow, things are kind of crazy. It's a nice time to kind of sit away by yourself and think about what amazing is for the world, not just yourself. Like, what's amazing? Free time, helping people, being comfortable. Very amazing. That could be designed, you can be the architect of that dream.
Yeah. What about your, did your son ever follow in your footsteps with baseball or no?
No, my kids didn't really, they played. I mean, they were more football players.
How many children do you have?
I have two sons, Joseph and David, 21 and 27.
So they're both young men already.
Yeah, 28. Yeah. 28 and 22. 28 and 21. Yeah. I don't know. It went by like a flip nickel. Boom. Just like that.
Yeah. So when did you move from Massachusetts to Florida?
I left Massachusetts, I thought, for the last time with a gym bag full of, I got in a JetBlue flight from Boston to Jacksonville because I was so sick, and I'd running out of time to go to that rehab center. And I had some sweatpants and a gym bag. I left all my worldly belongings behind. I had a 8,000 square foot house and all kinds of possessions. I had restaurants and businesses, and I left, and I figured I wouldn't be coming back, and I just stayed in Jacksonville after my transplant. That's where I decided to post up and heal.
And you've been there ever since?
No, a year ago, I moved to a little north of Miami Beach. I wanted to be on the water is what I want to do. I want to be on the water. I want to see the ocean in the morning, and I want to see I wanted to be towards, 2 major airports, and this is as good as it gets. There's Fort Lauderdale and Miami Airport right here.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful area, and I can see in your background. So you're right. You're beachfront.
Yeah, I'm right on the water. I live in the Diplomat Hotel I live north of Miami.
Let's dive into your podcast, Books to Business. When did it start? Why did it start? And obviously your passion for reading. That's pretty obvious. You showed me your pile of books, and I love that part of you.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer in the day you die is the day you stop learning, and I'm a strong believer in self-educating, reading, learning off other people, like just taking something. If you could, as an entrepreneur, if you could even take something small from everybody you are around, you're just going to better yourself, and you never have to reinvent the wheel. You just take the wheel and modify it and rebuild it for yourself, kind of way. So I love that part of you. So let's dive into your podcast and what it means to you and where it's going.
It's a incredibly interesting story. I liken this whole adventure, this whole recreation to like the bamboo tree. They say the bamboo tree is planted and grows underground for years. I think 4 or 5 years, and shoots up in 8 weeks, like 80 feet. So I'm kind of in the middle of that 80 feet shot, because I've been kind of dormant for pretty much 2 years. I didn't do anything. I was just kind of waiting to see what my purpose was. And once you have your purpose, you can put a filter against that and decline all the noise in life. So my purpose was to help people recreate themselves. And I worked backwards and reverse engineered what worked for me. And then some things didn't work for me. But what did work were books. And, I read these books. I read so many books, and I'd always get a big idea out of a book. And then I was on a podcast, and I met someone I think you've interviewed, Ed Pinero.
Yeah.
He lived at the time right next to me. And we'd get together for lunch, because neither of us had many friends, because we're kind of working on ourselves. So we would meet every day at the pier for lunch, and we'd always be talking about books. And Eddie would talk about a book, and I'd talk about a book. And then one day we turned the camera on. We called it the peer review. We were just going to review a book, and we started with a book that we liked. Was "Oh, the Places You'll Go," which you can read in 6 minutes. Right? If you don't read that one. You're reading a book 6 minutes in. And then we did Alchemist. And then we were like, hey, man, let's do a show. We're reading the books anyway. So we started reading the same books. In October, we turned the cameras on. And now we have a podcast studio. We have a full-time producer that runs all our social and runs the show. And the technique for this, for me, is net. It's no extra time. I always was like that. Is
the studio out of your own place, or are you actually in the studio today working?
We actually are we got a bigger place in the hotel, so this is all glassed off. So the studio's in the apartment. It's in the condo.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. It's a big place. It's a big enough place where it's almost like it is a hotel. I was going to say it's like a hotel. Yeah. But the whole thing is net. No extra time for me to do this, because I read the book anyway. And I always outline it. I put these, I put big ideas. I dog ear them as I read them. And then we just talk about the ideas, and it's been great. It's a podcast, and it's fun. It creates content for me, for my digital presence. It of course gives me knowledge. And then when you teach, obviously you have a higher level of learning when you're reading something to teach it, rather than just to absorb it.
100%. So you're a strong believer in still actually reading like physical books, not audiobooks, or you dive into both?
I have an algorithm for that. The algorithm I use, if you want to gobble up a lot of content, I read the book, I buy the book, and I sit down and I put it on two times the speed on the audio. I downloaded it on Audible, so it costs double. Yeah. But I could take a book. This is a book we just did, The 4 Hour Workweek with Tim Ferriss. I did it on Audible at 2 times, which sounds really fast. But if you open the book and read along, you take it in really nicely. So I read along with it at a fast speed, and then I stop it when I hear a big idea. I stop the thing, and I put a sticky note on the book. And at the end, I just go through my sticky notes. Then I have the content for the podcast.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I like that. I love the physical in my office too. I got a ton of books here. I love the physical books because for that reason, every time I'm reading a book, I always have a highlighter with me. On vacation, it was recently a couple months ago, we were on vacation with the kids, and I scrambled everywhere trying to find a highlighter because I forgot mine at home. Because when I'm reading, I love highlighting parts of the book that I can refer to or go back to. So I like that you're putting little notes and everything.
Yeah, I I never read any books. I had a little bit of talent, and I applied that algorithm like a stone cutter. I just kept hammering what I knew how to do: get leads, recruit agents, get leads, recruit agents. Now I've learned how to do things. I learned how to become a better speaker. I learned the cognitive biases. I've learned principles of marketing, principles of persuasion. I learned so much.
Do you have any longer term goals for yourself now? Now we're talking about goal setting. Do you have anything that, you know what, next 3 years, Terrance, this is where I want to be. This is where I visualize myself to be.
I have timing on that is remarkable, because I have a filter for what my purpose is. I really looked at this carefully, because I wanted to help everyone. I wanted to help everyone recreate themselves. I had a message that I knew would work, and I tried to apply it to the addiction field, because they want to rehabilitate everybody, and that mostly doesn't work. About 95% of the time, the technology that people automatically go to, at least here in the States, is 12 steps. You're an addict, you got to go through this step.
It's the same thing here. Yeah.
It doesn't really work for most people. It works really well for some. And to be in recovery, like, they made a permanent post up for that. Like, recovery is supposed to be a temporary thing. Like, when I got operated on, they cut my stomach open. I went to a recovery room and left. I was recovered. So I think there's a switch that could be applied to that. But all addiction is a loss of connection. And lots of people have that loss of connection in normal life. And I didn't have the authority to go into that space. I actually bought an addiction center and lost about $1 million real fast.
You bought one?
I bought one right after my thing. Yeah, I bought an addiction center. I lost.
So you're a serial entrepreneur yourself, huh?
No, it was like driving a brand new car off a cliff every month. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was in no place to do that.
When you purchased it, was it more? Were you looking at it as also financial, like a business, or were you looking at more just giving back for what you've been through?
There's a long story about that, and I had no business doing that when it happened. It was like literally right after my surgery. But the reality is, whatever I did then. The key was I could not become an authority in that space yet, but now I think I'd have a good chance of being more heard. But when I got sick and it looked like I was going to die, I went to Africa because I wanted to see the animals before I died. So my best friend and I went to Africa, and I told the guide, I said, I want to see the lions. He goes, well, you're probably not going to see the lions, because all lions do in Africa is they sit in the weeds all day and they just look at stuff. They just observe, and they take things in, and they plan, they scheme in their head until, they find a herd, and they'll study the herd. And when they pounce, what the lion does is the lion breaks away. The lion breaks away 2 or 3 of the herd so that they can win. They don't go after the whole herd. So the metaphor for marketing is, like, be like the lion. Like, I shouldn't have done that, because I couldn't take that giant industry. It's a huge problem. I had no idea how to solve it. But now I looked at suffering. I looked at, the grind, and I went back and I started applying it to my old business, people that I used to know that suffered from exactly what I had problems with, the uncertainty of your income, all the stress, the toxicity. And now I teach them how to remove that, how to get predictable results so you're not whacked out with income and cash flow. So I became like the lion. So now I'm doing it right now. I'm helping financial advisors and people in sales and business owners only for now. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. And now it's obviously making some opportunities present themselves, because I learned all the algorithms to get clients online, to build social media, to do podcasts. So I have a lot of information that's really helpful to people, get them out of the grind. In 3 years, I see myself scaling that so I can do it and still have my amazing. Maybe that'll wander. And so I'm working mostly with business owners, is the short answer, instead of the whole world. And then see how philanthropy goes with my books later on.
So we had spoken about this prior to going live on air. You have one book out now. The name of the book is?
My book is Superhero Self.
but you've written 4 or 3 other books. That are these going to be coming out soon, or is this something that's still in the works?
I wrote a book. I wrote a small book. Why be a financial planner? Like, because I used to be a financial planner, so I wrote that book. But I wrote another book, How to Write Your Way into Recreation. So the book's called Write Your Way into Recreation: How to Write Your First Book with No Experience. There's an algorithm that I found, and I shared it in this little book. I haven't really sold it, but I use it for coaching, because once in a while people say, I want to write a book. I can give it to you if you want to give it to your audience. It's just says Write Your Way to Recreation. It's a 48-page book, and I actually wrote the book in 7 days. So I have a technique where you can, basically make a PowerPoint of what you want to do, just like you'd be doing a presentation. Very short book, 1 or 2 ideas, not 10.
Yeah. And
I outline it. I give the presentation to myself verbally, and I have a writing partner that works on it to make it perfect. And then we just hire out that particular thing. So that's like I'd like to do. A lot of people say I want to write a book too, and I did it the hard way. I grinded it out 1 page at a time. That was tough. It took me a year. I could have wrote that book now in 30 days. Packaged, the plate, done. Because I know what I'm talking about. If you're an authority on a subject matter, you can knock it. You have a book in you. You can get it out of you through interview and transcribe it. That transcription's a manuscript. And a good writer, and the world is full of people that write, because everyone's written their own book already. If they're a writer, they need other things to do. Hire them. They're everywhere. But the book I'm writing right now is called The Anywhere Advisor. I'm working on that right now. It's how to, it's for the industry specifically, but it could be for anybody that gives advice. How to liberate yourself from the office, how to get a predictable flow of leads online, and how to work from anywhere on earth better.
Amazing. Than
you currently do. Not it's not a trade-off. You don't have to make a trade-off. It could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a process to that.
With your algorithms, which is a massive part of your life, massive part of everybody. We talked about this also prior. It's a massive part of pretty much everybody's day of life, not knowing it is. Is this something you want to teach or spread more? Is this something that you're working on teaching, spreading more? Is this something you do every day, spreading kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's the good and bad algorithms in every single day. I mean, you probably ran 10, 20 algorithms already today, just you and I being here. Got up, you went in the shower. Did you brush your teeth? Did what you do, cook breakfast, drank water, maybe you went for a run. That's an algorithm. Your routine is an algorithm. You have a lot of mini algorithms. If you're doing, like you and I had to get on this show together at the same time. So you had an invitation that we just met, and they sent me a link. Then we got on together, we had a chat, and here we are producing a show. Then you'll edit it, produce it. That's an algorithm. That's teachable, right? Everyone thinks everything's so unique, and like most things, if you dissect it down, you can capture it, make it more efficient, optimize it, or get rid of it. Might not be serving you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part. Exactly, bringing back to what you said, is cutting it, because a lot of people have a lot of things they go through their day, and they fill their schedule with unneeded things.
Yeah, I mean, our culture recognizes hard work, and people that, like, you have real estate, right? And you can make a lot of passive income for doing almost nothing. Like, is that lazy or is it smart? Is that being efficient or effective? That's a 4-hour work week. Yeah, you're efficient.
Yeah,
you're creating arbitrage with your time and money, and good for you, because that way you can be flying around the country helping your son play baseball and be a coach.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be at the office and you'd be looking back at the end, like I was, saying, "Why did I waste my whole life? Why was my whole life a giant mistake? My priorities were screwed up."
Yeah, it's that moment when. You were one of the lucky ones, Terrance. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't have that opportunity, that moment to wake up and recreate themselves like you did, which is, I love your story. I always finish off with 3 questions I always ask all our guests. The first one is, where you are currently in your life, if you could go back 20 years, would there be a different path career-wise? Did you want to be a baseball? Is there another path you would love the opportunity or love the opportunity to had got into?
Just to speak to that I was lucky. There's not a day that goes by that I don't realize that somebody had to die for me to live. And also somebody else could have gotten that precious organ and I would have died. So two people were affected, like they're no longer in the world. So I had to honor that. And
appreciate that.
If I didn't have what happened to me because of the choice I made 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here today to share what I think is important to people, to liberate them. The ripple effect of even one person transforming is remarkable. I guess, but if I was forced into the decision, if I had to do something again, would it be what I did? I think I would. I think I'd do it. I did it well. I think I would have, there's things I would do differently. But if you go back 30 years in college, I wish I honored my scholarship. I didn't. I just assumed I was entitled to go to school for free, and I didn't go to school. I barely ever went to class. If that's a regret I have, I can't do anything about that one.
Yeah.
I should have gotten more connected with the right people in my life. No, it's more about the people than it was about what I did with my time professionally.
Do you keep we talked about that. You had just mentioned that about eliminating people out of your life that shouldn't be there. And that was a big part of your rebuilding. Do you keep a small circle of friends now? Like how close, how many people do you keep close to you? And I always find that interesting because I have a very tight knit circle. I have a very big social presence, I should say, or through my networks, but there's a very tight little circle of friends that I keep close to me. And these friends, if you were to put us all in a room, not one of them, anyone who would stand there and connect us, because we have different interests, different stuff, but they're just good souls, good people that you want to confine in, people you want to be around when shit hits the fan. And when you do find those small people, you probably count in one hand, you keep them close to you. So where's your mindset on that?
I've thought a lot about this because people, left a lot of people behind in the bus. I look at Jim Collins' book, The Right People on the Bus, the Wrong People Off the Bus. A lot of people got off my bus. And I put them in a nostalgia bucket and I didn't just no longer call them a friend. I just don't spend a lot of time.
Yes.
But the whole process of being, I have a theory that, the hypothesis that the anxiety epidemic and the suicide epidemic, more people died from suicide last year than war, terror, and crime combined. Like it's people are like, they're like losing it a little bit. That a lot of that's due to the way we're set up to live. And, we weren't designed biologically to be in small spaces with lots of people. And eating processed food and not moving, like we were designed to be in small groups. I read the book Sapiens. I read Daniel Lieberman's The Story of the Human Body, like small groups of very, very tight-knit people that have your back, moving a lot, moving every day, 16 miles a day, and eating food that was recently alive. Like if you did that in your life, and when I got healthy, like all the anxiety I've ever had, it all kind of drifted out of my life when I got tight, and I lived a very simple life. I ate really good food. I had few friends, so the answer is under 10, way under 10, other than family member. I have a big family, like 4 or 5 people, my group. And then I eat well and I move. So that's kind of how my belief is. I believe very strongly that is the answer. Like people that have a lot of anxiety should get into nature. They should start to walk, be around people they care about, that care about them. That'll start to really take them away from their basically, if you study the animals in a zoo, how they act, That's kind of how animals in a zoo, when they're starting in captivity, they start acting like depressed. They're all lethargic. And a lot of people can't handle living in these big cities with all this noise and anxiety. They're not moving, they're not eating well. And that's the fertilizer for depression, anxiety, and sadness, disconnection, loss of connection. It's really, so relationships is so huge.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The next question I always ask everybody is, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, if I had a superpower, this is a tough question. If I had a superpower, I want to be able to hold a book up to my head and have the knowledge in my brain. Everything else I could figure out.
That's interesting. That's awesome.
Right.
I love that one.
I mean, aside from flying and teleporting and stuff like that, or time machine would be the best one, I guess. But get knowledge quicker.
Knowledge quicker. And the last thing I always ask everybody is, if you were gone today, how would you want your close friends to describe you in a few words?
That's the Stephen Covey funeral exercise. You're driving up to a funeral one day, and you get into the funeral home, and there's sadness and there's noise about that. You can tell this person was missed, and there's 3 or 4 speakers, and then when you get up to the funeral, you think it's a friend funeral, you look down and it's yours. This is kind of how you create your narrative. Like the 3 speakers or 5 speakers, let's say it's your kids. Like, my dad taught me how to get up after he fell down. It was, your partner that, he provided for me, and he was loyal and dedicated and did his best. My faith, someone from my faith, that he lived a spiritual life. He was a good Christian, and he gave back. And coworkers that, I learned from him. He taught me. So I learned, I look back and say, this is the guy that touched my life, and I did the best I could. But I want the speakers to say something like that, not that he made billions of dollars and I don't think I have the capacity to invent anything. I think I can inspire people, but he inspired me to change my life and transform.
That's perfect. Terrance, has been a pleasure having you on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm going to put in all our show notes, all the info to get a hold of Terrance, to hear his podcast, Books to Business, get a hold of his books, and just give him a follow through social media. Is there anything, last things you want to say to our audience?
Yeah, you can search me on Google. TerranceMcMahon.com is my website. And there's a free version of Superhero Self. I don't charge for it. You can download it and read it. It's a short book about how to recreate yourself and recover from anything.
I appreciate it. We're going to give it a wrap from there. Thanks again. Till next week, everyone.